On a sunny morning in San Francisco, Alex Carter, a successful entrepreneur, decided to conduct a surprising experiment at his bank, Golden Gate Bank. To understand how employees treated customers, Alex disguised himself as an ordinary person, wearing a faded jacket, old jeans, and a simple baseball cap. He wanted to see if bank employees truly lived by the values the bank proclaimed. As he entered the bank branch, Alex felt the quiet atmosphere, broken only by the sound of typing and the air conditioning. Posters on the walls urged support for local businesses and promised community service. He couldn't help but suspect that these promises existed only on paper. Sarah Thompson, the branch manager, stood behind the counter with a serious expression. She was a middle-aged woman with salt and pepper hair who always paid attention to appearances. When she saw Alex walk in, she frowned but maintained a polite smile. Behind the counter, Jake, a young employee, was arranging documents with a tense posture. Alex approached the counter and greeted her. "Good morning. I'd like to inquire about a small business loan. I run a woodworking shop and want to expand." Sarah looked down at Alex's cap, and her smile faded. "I'm sorry, but we require customers to have good credit and a clear business plan to be considered for a loan," she replied in a cold tone. Feeling a bit disappointed, Alex was prepared for this. "I have some basic financial information that I think might help," he said, handing her a sheet of paper. Sarah skimmed the paper and immediately frowned. "I don't see enough collateral here," she remarked. "And the figures seem quite modest. Perhaps you should seek another lender or ask family for help." While Sarah was dismissive, Jake noticed the situation and stepped in with concern. "Sarah, didn't we just roll out a program to support local small businesses? Maybe we should reconsider his case?" Sarah shot him a sharp look. "Jake, I know our offerings well. But this application doesn't meet the criteria." Jake felt disappointed but held back his thoughts. Alex, seeing Jake's helplessness, felt a wave of sadness wash over him. Although the bank had beautiful slogans about community support, the reality was starkly different. "Thank you for your time," Alex said with a forced polite smile. He turned to leave the bank, but just before reaching the door, Jake called out, "I'm sorry about that. If you'd like, I can show you some resources or book an appointment with a specialist." Alex turned back, surprised by Jake's kindness. "Thank you, I really appreciate that." In that moment, he felt a glimmer of hope. Jake led Alex to a quieter corner of the bank, away from prying ears. "I'm not a loan officer, so my authority is limited, but I know our bank's policies pretty well. We introduced programs for local artisans and small business owners, but they're not heavily advertised," Jake explained. "It's unfortunate that Sarah dismissed my case so quickly," Alex said. Jake nodded. "Yeah. But I still want to help. If you can wait a week, I could try to set up an appointment with Mr. Patel, another manager who might be more open-minded." Feeling more optimistic, Alex replied, "Thank you, Jake. I really appreciate your help." After sharing his contact information, Alex left the bank with mixed feelings of hope and disappointment. In the following days, Alex returned to the bank, this time dressed more formally. He wore a white dress shirt and slacks, leaving behind the baseball cap. When he entered, Sarah immediately noticed the change and welcomed him with a bright smile. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" she asked, her tone cheerful and inviting. "I'd like to open a savings account and possibly look into some investment options," Alex said. Sarah eagerly led him to a desk, where she began enthusiastically discussing the bank's products. Watching from a distance, Jake felt something was off. He couldn't believe that the man he had helped in the baseball cap was now being treated differently. Alex saw Jake's eyes and gave him a quick nod, signaling his support. As Sarah continued to present various investment options, Alex seized the opportunity to ask, "Do you think the bank treats all customers fairly?" Sarah looked at him with surprise but maintained her smile. Of course. We always strive to serve everyone to the best of our ability. Alex couldn't help but smile at the glaring contradiction. When Sarah stepped away to fetch some necessary documents, Alex whispered to Jake, who was nearby sorting paperwork, "It's me, Alex. I'm back to check on a few things." "Wow, you look different," Jake replied, surprised. "Did you get an appointment with Mr. Patel yet?" "Working on it," Alex replied, keeping his voice low. "But I needed to see how things run on a typical day." He glanced at Sarah's desk, where she had placed a glossy brochure promoting equal opportunity lending, the irony thick in the air. "I'm glad you came back," Jake said. "Just be careful with Sarah. She can be sharp. If she suspects anything's off, she'll change her tune quickly." Alex appreciated the warning. "Don't worry, I'm prepared." Sarah returned, none the wiser, and went back to her cheerful pitch, offering Alex favorable terms for new account holders. She hadn't mentioned anything about their previous encounter when he wore the baseball cap, confirming Alex's suspicion that her standards were flexible and subject to her biases. After completing the short visit, Alex left the bank with new insights. He now had direct evidence that Sarah's attitude varied drastically based on her assessment of customers. Meanwhile, he had seen Jake's integrity remain steady no matter who approached the counter. Soon, Mr. Patel would return, and Alex intended to use that opportunity to set things right. The pieces were coming together, and Alex felt a sense of determination. The showdown was coming, and this time he wouldn't be leaving the branch as a stranger. It was a bright Monday morning when Alex returned to the Golden Gate Bank for the third time. This time, he didn't bother with a disguise. He wore a tailored suit, a crisp shirt, and a simple tie. Gone was the old baseball cap. He arrived early, just before opening hours, accompanied by two senior members of the compliance and ethics team. They waited near a coffee shop across the street until they saw the lights turn on inside the bank. Once the staff had settled, Alex nodded to his colleagues and strode confidently across the street. Inside the bank, it was quiet, just beginning to open for the day. Sarah was at the front desk, flipping through some papers, while Jake was at the teller counter, counting the cash drawer meticulously. As other employees arrived, the hum of starting another workday began. Alex entered through the glass doors without hesitation. This time, every step he took was filled with purpose. Sarah looked up, saw the well-dressed man and the two officials behind him, and immediately put on a warm smile. "Good morning, sir. How can we help you today?" she asked brightly, not recognizing him as the scruffy man she had dismissed before. "Good morning, Ms. Thompson. I'm here to see Mr. Patel." "I believe he's returned from his vacation," Alex said, his voice calm and professional. He knew Mr. Patel had arrived at the branch an hour earlier, as arranged with his assistant at headquarters. Sarah blinked, surprised that he knew Mr. Patel by name. "Yes, of course. Let me fetch him," she said, a hint of curiosity in her voice as she walked briskly toward the offices in the back. From the corner of his eye, Alex caught sight of Jake, whose eyes went wide with recognition. Jake understood now that the customer who had worn the baseball cap and the customer in the neat dress shirt were the same person standing before him. Soon enough, Mr. Patel stepped forward, extending a hand. "Alex Carter. It's a pleasure to see you again, sir," Patel said respectfully. He knew exactly who Alex was, the owner of the bank, a man rarely seen at the branch level. At these words, Sarah's friendly demeanor froze, and she glanced back at Alex, confusion shaping her features. "Mr. Carter, as in?" "Yes, Ms. Thompson," Alex said gently but firmly. "Alex Carter, the owner and CEO of Golden Gate Bank." He didn't give her time to speak. Instead, he gestured to the two officials who had entered with him. "These are members of our compliance and ethics team. We're conducting a review today." His voice carried a calm authority that made the other employees straighten their postures. Sarah's cheeks flushed, and she stammered, "I had no idea you were coming." If I'd known. Her eyes darted nervously around the room, trying to recall if she had seen him before. Slowly, realization crept in, and she swallowed hard. Alex offered no immediate explanation for his previous visits. Instead, he turned to Jake, who was now watching intently. "Jake, would you mind joining us in the conference room? We'd like your input on a few matters," he said kindly. Jake nodded, still stunned, and followed them into the small conference room. The compliance officers sat near the door, prepared to take notes. Sarah hovered by the side, worried lines etched on her forehead, while Patel sat quietly, arms folded, curious to see how this would play out. "Over the past week, I visited this branch a few times," Alex began. "During my first visit, I appeared quite different." He paused, letting his words sink in. Sarah's face grew pale. "I wore a baseball cap and casual clothes. I asked about a small business loan for my woodworking venture, and you, Ms. Thompson, dismissed me without much consideration. Yet on another visit, when I dressed more professionally, you were eager to help me open accounts and discuss investments." Sarah opened her mouth to protest, but no words came out. She had no defense prepared. Alex continued, his voice steady and calm. "This isn't about politics or appearance, it's about fairness, professionalism, and living up to the mission statements we proudly display. I learned a lot from these visits. I saw how one employee," he gestured toward Jake, "did his best to assist customers, no matter how they looked. Jake tried to bring up programs that would have supported small artisans. He put in effort when it wasn't expected. He lived the values of our bank." Jake blushed, lowering his gaze, but a small proud smile tugged at his lips. He had never imagined this outcome, never dreamed the ordinary customer he tried to help was actually the owner. Alex shifted his attention back to Sarah. "Ms. Thompson, I'm deeply disappointed your behavior doesn't align with our bank's principles. We do not judge customers by their attire, their political affiliations, or their perceived income level. Our goal is to support our community. Every customer deserves a fair chance." Sarah's voice came out shaky. "I am sorry, Mr. Carter. I should have followed through, asked more questions, and considered the programs Jake mentioned. It won't happen again." Alex nodded solemnly. "I expect not. Effective immediately, your lending decisions will be reviewed by Mr. Patel for a probationary period. If we don't see improvement, we'll reconsider your position here. Additionally, I want our compliance team to work closely with you and the staff to ensure a better system is in place, one that prevents personal bias from influencing professional decisions." Sarah nodded, relief and regret mingling in her eyes. Alex then turned to Jake. "Your initiative, honesty, and compassion have not gone unnoticed. I want you to know that I appreciate your efforts. I'd like to see you progress within this organization. Let's have a conversation later about your future here." Jake's face lit up. "Thank you, Mr. Carter. I only did what I felt was right." "Right is exactly what we need more of," Alex said, meeting everyone's gaze firmly. "We will not fail our mission. This branch, like all Golden Gate branches, must truly serve every member of the community." As he left the conference room, followed by Patel and the compliance team, the bank staff remained silent, digesting what had just happened. The man who once walked in wearing a faded cap and modest clothes had revealed himself as their leader, and in doing so, he had sparked the very change that the bank's posters claimed to represent. This time, it would be real.